Hey everyone, it's Kathy Villafane and I'm ready for some real talk, as in real estate that is. Today I'm with Mr. Tico Brown. He is an insurance professional with Country Financial. And since we are in the thick of hurricane season, right now we're in the midst of Hurricane Michael. So I have a few questions for Mr. Brown. And I'm sure you would probably have a few questions yourself for your insurance agent. So the first question that I have is, what happens if my property gets damaged by tidal water or flooding caused by a hurricane?
That's a very good question. It's a question a lot of people need to ask before the hurricane gets here. Unfortunately, there's absolutely no coverage for flood waters or rising waters in a homeowner's insurance policy. So unless you have a separate flood insurance policy, you're not covered for any rising water.
Okay, and we need to check this out before the hurricane comes.
Exactly. Don't call me 2 days before the hurricane says I need flood insurance, because you will not be able to get it then.
You won't be able to help us?
No.
Oh, okay.
Flood insurance has a 30-day wait.
Oh.
So if you don't get it 30 days before you need it, it's not going to help you.
You're out of luck.
You're out of luck.
Okay, well that's good to know. I'm sure a lot of people did not know that. So now, what happens if there's trees that fall on my property due to a hurricane?
Tree foliage is one of the biggest things that happen, of course, during a hurricane. Most insurance companies, if the tree falls on a covered structure,
okay,
you have coverage for it. We'll pay to remove the tree and repair any damages. However, if a tree falls and it does not hit a covered structure,
okay,
we won't touch it.
Okay.
There's no coverage for a tree that falls unless it's blocking a driveway or some other access point to the property. So if it just falls in the backyard and it's not bothering anybody,
okay,
we don't remove it.
So then it's our responsibility.
Exactly.
Okay, well that's good to know as well. So what does it actually mean about a named storm deductible? I mean, that's confusing.
Yes, and it's something that everybody should understand, especially living in an area where you have hurricanes. Different companies have different names for it. You'll see wind hail deductible, named storm deductible, hurricane deductible, but they all add up to the same thing.
Okay.
There's a separate deductible whenever those coverages come into play. For example, in the named storm, like Michael, Hurricane Michael comes in. Now your deductible becomes a percentage of whatever your dwelling coverage is, and it's usually named in your contract. It's either 2%, 5%, or 10%. What does that mean in plain English? I'm always a big plain English guy. That means, let's break it down for some numbers. If I have a $200,000 property, my house is insured for $200,000, and I have a 2% named storm deductible, and Michael destroys my house, that means my deductible is now $4,000.
Wow.
But you say, oh, but my normal deductible is $1,000. Yes, but in the case of a named storm, that supersedes whatever your normal deductible is. So you have to understand what those deductibles are. People have gotten in a lot of trouble when they think they have $1,000 deductible. They get a $3,000 claim that's ready to go through the insurance company, and then they find out their deductible is $5,000 because it's a named storm. But it's because they didn't understand what that named storm deductible means. And a lot of times we gloss over that. It's 2% of your dwelling coverage, and because it's a named storm. But it's because they didn't understand what that named storm deductible means. And a lot of times we gloss over that. It's 2% of your dwelling coverage, and no one understands what that means.
Okay.
So 2% of your dwelling coverage is a number. And I like to give people a number because you can identify with a number instead of a concept.
Right.
So if you're not sure of that, especially in this area, always check with your insurance professional and make sure.
Now, is that something recently, or
if you've gotten insurance probably within the last 7 to 8 years, it's come into play. Now, if your homeowner's policy has been in force for 15 or 20 years, it's probably something you don't have to worry about.
So you're grandfathered in or something?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So you and I, we've been insured for a long time with our homes. We don't worry about that. But if you buy a new house now and you're in coastal property, you're going to be dealing with some kind of named storm deductible.
Wow, that's interesting, because I don't think a lot of insurance agents really explain that clearly to buyers, because buyers have so much to be concerned about when they're getting insurance.
Correct.
And then other people, when they're trying to just get a new policy, they don't think about that.
Right. And the other thing is, even I explain it the same way all the time, and my staff explains it the same way all the time. The problem happens when nothing happens for 5 years.
Right.
Then something happens, and you come in and you find out, oh, I have this deductible. You didn't tell me that. Well, yes, I did, but that was 5 years ago. And I understand you're not an insurance professional.
Exactly.
Which is why it's really important to have periodic reviews so you can review the coverage and just refresh your memory as to what it is that you have.
Okay.
And by the way, it's about time for you to have a review too.
Well, thank you. And that's one thing that I really like about working with you is your review process. I was very impressed with that, and it really did enlighten me on what I have and what worked a few years ago might not be working now.
Right.
So it's really good to, it's almost like a physical. You got to always go back to your doctor and get a
Exactly.
little checkup. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Tico Brown.
welcome.
And if you have any other questions or concerns, make sure you contact your professional insurance agent. If not, feel free to give Mr. Brown a call at 912-876-6169. Thank you, and we can have some more real talk.